2009, we went up there. We tried to go up with 3 of Ron's horses. We planned to stay for about 3 weeks, so we had a lot of gear and stuff we had to pack up. To get up to the top of this precipice, really, a pretty flat area on the top of the Sierras, above 10,000 feet, okay? We have to go about 8 to 10 miles up these very steep switchbacks that are about this steep, okay? With 3 horses loaded down with me and Ron, and a lot of other stuff. Okay? I took a lot of stuff Ron was complaining about. I took 4 cantaloupes, right? Ron complained about that. Until something happened, and he finally came to me and he says, I'm glad we took the cantaloupes. But we started up the switchbacks, and everything seemed fine. We had tested the horses out. They were good mountain horses. This was not the problem. We got about halfway up the switchbacks, and suddenly the horses began freaking out. My horse that I was on, I grew up with horses. I was able to hold on to my horse. Ron had his horse, and he had the pack horse behind him. His horse throws him, seemingly breaking his wrist, and the horses charge straight down, not going back down the switchbacks, but just go straight down through every sort of timber and big root balls and everything you can imagine. We thought the horses were dead already. Ron gets up, I get off my horse, tie him off. Ron says, I think I broke my wrist. I said, well, that's it, Ron, we're going down. This is it, you know. We're not going up from here. He says, no, you stay here. I'm going to go back down and get the horses. I thought he was crazy. I tried to talk him out of it, but he's a tough old guy. So he did this. About 2 hours later, and I'm just going up and down the trail, because anybody who knows anything about horse, you can't just hold a horse on a switchback trail and expect him to stand there and be calm. So I'm going up and down the switchbacks, and, you know, kind of back and forth, just to keep the horse occupied. My horse, named Mo, by the way. So Ron gets up there, back up, got things packed up, lost half our stuff, but he gets up there, he says, we got to keep going. I said, okay. So we go up a little further again. Something is freaking the horses out. These are seasoned horses. And again, Ron gets thrown off. This time both horses who are tied off together, Ron had tied one onto the other saddle, right? They don't run down the mountain, they tumble down the mountain. One over the other. And with that, I was certain, and Ron goes halfway down the first switchback with them. I thought certain Ron was probably dead in both horses. I held on to mine, barely, and I tie him off. I help Ron get up on the switchback. He says, I got to go down and get the horses. I said, you're nuts. I said, no, we're done, man. We're going down. He says, Scott, we've invested too much money, too much time. We need to do this. We've got a duty to perform. This kind of an underlying thing that we've had kind of oppressing us on our shoulders, that this is a duty that we have to perform. So again, he goes down, finds a couple of things that he had not found before, like a couple of the sleeping bags that had been lost, had been taken and set out on one of the switchback trails. So he's collecting this stuff, and then he finds one of the cantaloupes that has been bitten in half, like an apple, and not thrown away into the bushes, but again laid right on the trail, the switchback trail. He can see the teeth marks in it. I told Dave this story yesterday. He said, why didn't you save it? You know, well, at that point, I just wanted to go down. You know, we weren't thinking of packing anything up or down. I wasn't, but Ron is insistent. We got to go up. Okay? So, again, he gets these horses somehow, so for another 2 or 3 hours, I am separated from him. We didn't think about it. I had both walkie-talkies. I'm shouting to him sporadically after about an hour and a half, "Ron!" He's shouting to me, and you can barely hear each other. "Scott!" So most of the time we couldn't even hear each other. We were that far apart. But eventually, after several hours, he makes it back up. It's starting to get dark already. He makes it back up to where I am. Actually, in that process, my horse had gotten so nervous that I felt I had to go up and get off of the switchbacks. So this is what I did. And once I got to a certain point, and once things started to level out, I was on top. My horse I had been able to control. But at one point, I'd gotten off, and I wanted to I was in riding boots on the mountain, right? And I had a pair of hiking boots. So I got off, took my riding boots off, and put on a pair of hiking boots. And I got up to lead my horse, and the horse was frozen stiff. Almost like these classic pictures of a mule. Had his front feet frozen stiff like this. And he hadn't been like that all day. I said, "No, come on, I'm pulling." And she would not budge. And she had she was focused on something over in the forest in one particular area and would not budge. And I could not move her for 7 to 8 minutes. Pushing her from the back, pulling her tail, pushing her forward. She would not budge, and she would not take her mind off of this one spot in the forest. Finally, just as I was ready to give up, it's like something released her. She'd come out of it, and she turned around. She turned right around on the trail to head down the trail. Took about 5 steps, and I'm just thinking, great, we're on our way down. All of a sudden, she locked up again, going the other way, with her mind, her face, and her head focused on something in the forest, just beyond where I could see. And this again lasted for about another 7 to 10 minutes, me trying to push her back and forth. Again, the whole time, I'm worried. I don't know where Ron is. It's starting to get dark, really. Dusk is starting to... The sun is down, at least, up in the mountains. It goes down early. So, I'm getting a little bit nervous. Finally, and it was as if something turned the switch on in the horse. And she eased up, and suddenly there was no nervousness in her whatsoever. And we continued to trek down through the switchbacks. I'm wondering, could we open some of them curtains there, just let some of the light in? I'm getting spooked already. If my voice begins to sound nervous at any of these moments, you'll know why, hopefully. So, anyway, finally after several hours, I couldn't hear Ron. I said, forget it, I'm going down the mountain. I'm going to find Ron. We're getting down on this mountain. I met him about 3/4 of the way down the switchbacks. Here he comes. He couldn't hardly even walk. We had already thought he'd had his arm in a sling. We'd already thought his wrist was broken, and he was wrangling 2 pack horses with one hand, and he's coming up the trail like this. And I met him down. I says, "Ron, we got to cut our losses. We're going down the mountain." And he says, "You know what, Scott? I think you're right. I think now you're right." So we no sooner got him up on his horse and headed down the switchbacks when something spooked the horse again. Threw Ron. He was 1 switchback down from me. I saw him fall in between these rocks. If he'd have hit one of the rocks, he would have been dead. I thought he was dead anyway. I ran down there, and he was motionless. And I knelt down. I said, "Oh my God, Ron, what am I going to do? How am I going to get Ron? I can't carry his body down out of here. How am I going to get the horses and Ron's body down off this mountain?" I thought he was dead. And so I says, Ron, oh my God, man. I goes, "I'll be back for I says, "I'm going for help. I'll be back for you before morning." He goes, "I'm okay." He did not want to be left up on that mountain by himself. So that night we got him down off the mountain with bad busted ribs, and what we found out was a really bad sprained wrist and not a broken wrist. But we got down, and we got down into the horse camp, and that's when weird things started to happen. Let me tell you quickly some of the stuff that they never, that the cowboys, or the hunters up there, Ron's original group, had an agreement never to talk about before we even got started, back 35 years ago. There were strange lights, little lights, about the size of cantaloupe maybe, that would travel through the trees just beyond where you could say what they really were. This is in the top of the Sierra Mountains. There's nothing else up there, right? Some of these lights would then go up into, now does this sound like UFO crazy stuff? Yeah, but we've decided, forget it, we're going to tell the truth about it, right? The lights would then go up above the trees and go over the next ridge. This happened numerous times in their time up there. They would be sleeping in the hutch, this very famous old, Sierra hutch that these hunters had. It looks like a beaver dam almost. And they would crawl in there, and that's where they would sleep. At night, they would wake up to very metallic tick-tock sounds. Just like a very loud clock. They wake up, how's that watch? No, that's outside, that's out there. And it's way too loud to be any watch anyway. Very strange stuff. They would hear, they had big barrels, supply barrels that were chained to other trees outside the hutch. In the middle of the night, they would hear these barrels and the chains ripped off of the trees and thrown down the hill into, and they would hear them bang off of the rocks in and splash into the creek below. And in the morning, they would get up and nothing has been disturbed. This is beyond any, as he's explained this to me, this is beyond anything that I ever expected to get into. Right? Screams. There were nights that they don't talk about where they spent. Ron, this never happened to Ron, by the way. Otherwise, I think he would never be going back up there with me. But there were nights in the early years where the hunters inside spent all night locked and loaded, waiting for something to crash through the walls. Things were being flung at the hutch. They would come up and smack one, and the hutch was built pretty steadily. It's still there. It's made of big logs, but they had the feeling that whatever was out there could crash through it any time it wanted to. So they spent very sleepless nights ready to shoot. Screams, things thrown. And during all of those years, there were really only two sightings. One was by Ron's daughter, Rhonda, who was out one morning before any of the others were. She's a female, of course. They think that's why the creature, the being, showed himself to her. And it just walked down, probably about from here to that wall back there, just stopped and sort of presented himself to her, like this. For about 10 seconds, they both froze. Rhonda looked at him, and then he walks off. He's gone. Right? Then another time, one of the other hunters, who, by the way, after this incident, never, ever went back up. He was out, he went down to the creek, was washing, doing his morning toiletries, right, washing his face, brushing his teeth, and looks up, and right across the street is an adolescent on his haunches, just looking at him like this. Very benign, non-threatening. Right? But of course, this hunter, it just scared the hell out of him. He ran back up, got his stuff, and he left that day and would never go back up again.